The night sky above Earth was calm and full of stars. People were living their normal lives. Some were sleeping, some were working, and some were watching the quiet beauty of space. No one knew that everything was about to change, far beyond what human eyes could see. Something massive moved silently through space. It was not a meteor and not a satellite. It was something far bigger, something artificial, something alive in a way no human could understand. Within seconds, the stars began to disappear. Not one by one, but in large sections, as if darkness itself was spreading across the sky. People in different parts of the world started to notice it. Some thought it was clouds, others thought it was a strange natural event. But scientists knew something was very wrong. In observatories, alarms started ringing. Telescopes showed an object so large that it covered thousands of kilometers. It was not just one object, it was an entire fleet. Panic slowly began to spread. Military bases around the world went on high alert. Radar systems tried to track the objects, but many systems suddenly stopped working. Satellites went offline one after another. Communication signals started breaking, and confusion filled every control room. No one understood what was happening. Then, without warning, every screen on Earth turned black. Phones, televisions, computers, even digital billboards. Everything stopped at the same moment. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Then a message appeared, simple, clear, and terrifying. Prepare for extinction. People froze. Some thought it was a hack, some thought it was a prank. But deep down, everyone felt the same fear. This was real, high above Earth. The alien fleet remained still, thousands of ships, each one larger than any human structure. Their surfaces were dark and smooth, with no visible engines. No lights, just silent power inside the ships. Unknown beings observed the planet. They watched every signal, every movement, every reaction. They had studied humanity for years. They knew human languages, human history, and human behavior. And now, they were here on Earth. Leaders from different countries tried to respond. Emergency meetings were held. Military commanders prepared their forces. But there was a problem. Nothing was working properly. Missile systems were active, but targeting systems failed. Fighter jets were ready, but navigation systems were unstable. Even simple communication between bases became difficult. It was as if something was controlling everything. Fear turned into helplessness. In cities, people gathered in streets. Looking at the sky, some cried, some prayed, and some just stood in silence, unable to understand what was happening. Time felt slower. Minutes passed, but no attack came. The alien fleet did nothing. This made everything worse, because no one knew when it would begin. Then something changed. A small group of ships moved slightly, not toward Earth, but into a formation, as if preparing for something. Scientists noticed energy readings rising. Something powerful was building. People expected destruction. But instead, another message appeared. This time, it was longer. We have observed your species. You are violent, unpredictable, and dangerous. You destroy your own kind. You will not be allowed to expand beyond this planet. The message stopped. Silence returned on Earth. Confusion grew even more. This was not just an invasion. This was judgment. The aliens were not acting in anger. They were acting with purpose inside one of the largest ships. A command unit processed new data. Something was not matching their expectations. Human behavior at this moment did not fully align with their predictions. There was hesitation, and hesitation was something they did not expect. Back on Earth, one question filled every mind. Why were they waiting, and what were they planning? High above the planet, hidden deep within the shadows of the fleet, something else was watching, something that was not part of the alien armada, something that had been there long before they arrived, silent, dormant, but now, slowly waking up, the world did not sleep that night. Every city stayed awake, every light remained on, and every eye was fixed on the sky, waiting for something to happen, waiting for the moment everything would end. But nothing came. Hours passed, and the alien fleet remained completely still, like a storm that refused to strike. And that silence was more terrifying than any attack. Inside military command centers, tension grew heavier with every second. Generals and scientists argued. Some wanted to attack immediately. Others warned it would be suicide. But fear slowly pushed them toward one decision. They could not just wait to die. In one control room, a final order was given. Launch, deep underground, missile systems activated. Engines roared to life, and within seconds, multiple rockets shot into the sky, leaving bright trails behind them. People across the world saw the missiles rising, and for a moment, hope appeared. Maybe humans could still fight. Maybe they had a chance. The missiles moved faster and faster, heading directly toward the alien fleet, targeting the largest ships. Every system focused on this single strike. Then something impossible happened. The missiles slowed down. Not because of failure, not because of damage, but as if time itself was holding them back. Their speed dropped suddenly, and then one by one, they stopped completely in mid-air, frozen, suspended between Earth and space for a brief second. The entire world watched in silence. Then, without any explosion, without any sound, the missiles disappeared, gone, like they had never existed. Shock spread everywhere, in command centers. People stared at their screens, unable to understand what they just saw. No impact, no debris, nothing. It was as if reality had been rewritten. Above Earth, the alien fleet remained calm, unchanged, unaffected, like this was nothing more than a small test. Inside their ships, the alien commanders observed carefully, recording every human action, every reaction, every emotional response. To them, this was data, cold, precise, calculated on Earth. Panic began to grow stronger. People started to realize the truth. Humans were not just outmatched, they were completely powerless. Fighter jets were launched next. Pilots pushed their machines to the limit, flying higher than ever before, determined to reach the alien ships, determined to do something. But as they climbed, their systems began to fail. Screens flickered. Controls stopped responding. Engines lost power one by one. The jets were forced to turn back, barely avoiding crashes. It was not a battle, it was control. The aliens were not destroying human weapons. They were simply deciding that they would not work. Cities around the world fell into fear. People rushed to find safety. Some tried to leave crowded areas. Others stayed with their families, holding on to hope that this was not the end. Religious leaders spoke. Scientists searched for answers. But no one had control over the situation. The sky belonged to something else now. Then, suddenly, every screen on Earth activated again. The same dark background, the same silent presence. A new message appeared. We allowed your attempt. A pause followed, as if the words themselves were watching humanity react. It confirms our analysis. You are a threat, across the world. People felt the weight of those words, not just fear, but judgment. Something had already decided their fate, but the message was not finished. There was another pause, longer this time. Then the final line appeared. We are not here to destroy you. Yet, the word yet echoed in every mind. It was not mercy, it was delay. Something else was happening. Something not yet revealed, high above Earth. Deep inside the alien command ship, new data streams began to appear. Signals that did not come from human systems. Signals that did not match any known pattern. The alien systems tried to trace it, but failed. For the first time since their arrival, there was uncertainty. A small shift in their perfect control. Something hidden on Earth had responded. And it was not human, back on the planet. No one knew this yet. People only saw the silence return again. Heavier than before, more dangerous than ever, because now they understood the truth. The aliens were not rushing, they were waiting. And whatever they were waiting for, it was far worse than destruction. The silence did not feel empty anymore, it felt controlled. Like every second was being measured by something watching from above. Something that already knew how this would end. Across Earth, people waited, but now the fear had changed. It was no longer the fear of sudden destruction. It was the fear of something planned, something calculated, in orbit. The alien fleet began to move again, slowly, carefully. Ships shifted positions and formed a perfect circular pattern around the planet, like a cage closing in. Every movement was precise, every angle exact. Inside their command ships, the alien leaders prepared to reveal the truth they had hidden. On Earth, every screen came to life once more. The same dark signal, the same presence, but this time there were images, real images, scenes from human history appeared one after another. Wars, explosions, cities burning, soldiers fighting, people running in fear. The worst moments of humanity were displayed without emotion. No voice explained them. They did not need to. Everyone understood. Then the message began. We have studied your species for a long time. You call yourselves human. You believe you are intelligent. You believe you are advancing. A short pause followed. Then the tone changed. But you are unstable. You are violent. You destroy your own world. The images continued, showing conflict after conflict, pain after pain. The truth that humanity often tried to forget was now being shown to the entire planet at once. People could not look away. And they could not deny it in control rooms. Scientists and leaders watched in silence. No one tried to argue because the evidence was real. Then the message continued in the galaxy. Species like yours do not survive. They expand, they consume, they destroy, and then they turn that destruction outward. A new image appeared. This one was different. It showed other worlds, destroyed planets, empty space where life once existed, civilizations erased completely. This was not about Earth anymore. This was a warning. We have seen this before. We have stopped it before. And then the truth was revealed. You are not the first. Shock spread across the world. People realized this was not just an invasion. It was a pattern, a system. Something far older and far larger than humanity. The message continued. Your species has reached the threshold. You are close to expanding beyond your planet. You are close to becoming a threat to others. And that is why we are here. Silence followed those words. Heavy and unavoidable. Then the final line appeared. To remove you. Before it is too late, people felt the weight of extinction again. But now it was different. This was not anger. Not revenge. This was judgment, cold and final on Earth. Some people protested, some denied, some begged. But none of it mattered. The decision had already been made, or so it seemed. Because inside the alien command system, something unexpected was happening. Their data was changing. New signals continued to appear. Not random, not noise, but structured, intelligent, and impossible to trace. The system tried to match it with known civilizations. No result. It tried to identify it as human technology. No match for the first time. A warning appeared inside their own network. Unknown source detected. The alien commanders focused on it immediately. Running deeper scans, searching every part of Earth, every signal, every hidden system, but the source was not clear. It was everywhere and nowhere, back on Earth. The message returned one final time. But now there was a difference, a hesitation, something small, but noticeable. Our analysis is incomplete. The pause was longer than before. Long enough for humans to feel it, to question it, to proceed. We require confirmation. Confusion spread across the planet. Confirmation of what, from who, then a final line appeared. Something on your world does not match our records. At that exact moment, deep beneath the surface of Earth, far below any known facility, something ancient reacted. A system that had been silent for an unknown amount of time. A presence that had never been discovered. Until now, it was not human, it was not alien. But it had been watching everything. Waiting, and now, for the first time in ages, it began to wake. High above the planet, the alien fleet held position. No attack, no movement, just observation. But their perfect certainty was gone, replaced by something new. Something they had not felt in a very long time. Doubt, deep beneath the surface of Earth. Far below any city, any ocean, any place humans had ever reached. Something ancient continued to wake. Not with sound, not with light, but with awareness. It did not rush, it did not panic. It simply became active for countless years. It had remained silent, hidden beyond detection. Watching the slow growth of humanity, learning, observing. Waiting for a moment that had now arrived. Above the planet, the alien fleet held its position. But their systems were no longer perfect. Small errors began to appear. Nothing major at first, just minor glitches. Signals that delayed by a fraction of a second. Data that repeated for no reason. But for a species that relied on absolute precision, even the smallest error was unacceptable inside their command ship. The alien leaders focused on the unknown anomaly, every system working to trace it. But the more they searched, the less they understood. The signal was not coming from a single point, it was spread across the entire planet. Like a shadow woven into reality itself, on Earth. Humans were still unaware of what was happening beneath them. They only saw the sky, the unmoving fleet, and the silence that refused to end. But then something changed. Power grids across several regions flickered, not like a failure, but like a reset. Lights went out for a second and came back stronger. Communication systems stabilized in some areas. Even damaged satellites briefly came back online before shutting down again. It was inconsistent, unpredictable, but it was not random. In one underground research facility, a group of scientists noticed something unusual. Their instruments began detecting signals they had never seen before. Not human, not alien, but structured, organized. Almost like a language, they tried to record it. But every time they got close, the signal changed. As if it knew it was being watched high above. The alien fleet reacted instantly. Multiple ships adjusted their positions, scanning the planet with increased intensity. Energy readings rose as they tried to isolate the source. Then suddenly, one of the smaller alien ships went dark. No explosion, no warning. It simply disappeared from their network, gone. The alien commanders froze for a moment. Something like this had never happened before. Not in any recorded encounter, not in any system they had ever faced. They attempted to reconnect, no response. They scanned the surrounding space, nothing. It was as if the ship had been erased completely. For the first time since their arrival, a new variable entered their calculations. Uncertainty on Earth. People began to notice strange changes. Electronic devices started working again in random places. Some areas regained full power, while others remained dark. It was chaotic, but within that chaos, there was a pattern forming, something was interfering. But it was not targeting humans, it was targeting the aliens. Then every screen on Earth activated once again. But this time, the signal was unstable, flickering, breaking. Like two forces were trying to control it at the same time. The alien message tried to appear, but it was interrupted. Distorted symbols flashed across the screens, shapes that no human could understand. Sequences that did not belong to any known language. Then, for a brief second, everything went completely black. Silence returned, but it was different now. Heavier, deeper, then the alien message forced its way through. "This is not human activity," the statement was direct. Almost sharp, their tone had changed, less certain, more alert. "We are detecting an unknown system. We did not account for this, for the first time." Humanity heard something unexpected. The aliens did not understand something. And that meant they were not in full control anymore. High above, more ships began scanning aggressively. Beams of invisible energy sweeping across Earth. Searching, probing, trying to locate the source. But the more they searched, the more unstable their own systems became. Another ship vanished, then another. Each disappearance silent, clean, impossible to explain. Inside their command network, warnings began to stack rapidly. Systems overloaded with unknown inputs, data streams corrupted by signals that could not be decoded. The alien leaders attempted to isolate their own systems from the interference. But it was too late. The signal was already inside. Not attacking, not destroying, but changing things quietly, precisely. Back beneath the surface of Earth, the ancient system continued its activation. Layer by layer, function by function, like something stretching after a very long sleep. It was not reacting with anger. It was not acting out of fear. It was simply following its purpose. A purpose that had been waiting for this exact moment above. The alien fleet no longer looked like an unstoppable force. Small gaps had formed, movements were less perfect. Coordination slightly delayed. For a species that depended on absolute order, this was the beginning of failure on Earth. People began to feel something new. Not hope, not yet, but a shift, a change in the balance. They did not know what was helping them. They did not understand what was happening. But they could see it. The aliens were no longer untouchable. And far beyond human knowledge, something ancient had fully awakened. Watching both sides and deciding what would happen next. For the first time since their arrival, the alien fleet felt something they had not experienced in ages. Fear, not loud, not chaotic, but cold and sharp, spreading quietly through their command systems. It began with silence, not the silence of space, but the silence of lost connection. One more ship vanished, then another, no explosion. No signal, no trace, just absence, as if something reached out and removed them from existence itself. Inside the main command vessel, alarms did not sound. Because their systems were not designed for panic, but warnings appeared one after another. Red symbols flashing across their interfaces, calculations running without conclusion. They were losing ships, and they did not know how. The alien leaders focused all their attention on the unknown presence. They increased scanning power, redirected energy, and locked every sensor onto Earth. But the results did not change. No location, no origin, no pattern they could fully understand. It was everywhere at the same time on Earth. People began to notice the changes more clearly. The sky was no longer perfectly still. Small movements appeared in the alien formation, tiny gaps where ships once stood. Shifts that should not happen in such a precise fleet. News channels tried to report it, but information was unstable. Some broadcasts worked, others failed, yet one message spread everywhere. Something was happening to the aliens. And for the first time, humans were not the ones losing. In several cities, power returned completely. Lights filled the streets again, communication networks came back online, and people began to reconnect, sharing videos, messages, and one common question: what is fighting them? But no one had the answer. Deep underground, the hidden system continued its work, silent and controlled. Massive structures far beyond human design began to activate fully. Layers of technology that had never been seen or imagined by human minds. It was not rushing, it was choosing above the planet. The alien fleet made a decision. They could not allow this unknown force to continue. They needed to act. Energy levels across their ships began to rise rapidly. Weapon systems charged for the first time since their arrival. Space around them seemed to bend slightly under the pressure of their power. On Earth, scientists detected the change immediately. Panic returned as people realized what was about to happen. The aliens were preparing to strike, but before they could fire, something interrupted them, a signal. Not from Earth's surface, not from any human device, but from deep space. It arrived instantly. Without travel time, without delay, appearing directly inside the alien command network. The entire fleet froze, every system paused for a fraction of a second. Then the signal expanded. It was not just data, it was structured, clear, intentional. The alien systems tried to block it, but failed. Because it was already inside everything, screens across their ships changed. Their own interfaces replaced by symbols they could not fully translate. Patterns shifting and reforming faster than their processors could follow. For the first time, their control was no longer complete. On Earth, every screen flickered again. But this time, there was no alien message. Only the strange symbols, endless, moving. Alive in a way that felt impossible. People watched in silence, unable to understand, but feeling something change deep inside. This was not random, this was communication. Inside the alien command ship, their highest intelligence systems worked at maximum capacity, trying to decode the signal, trying to identify its source. Then, finally, they found something, not a location, but a conclusion. The signal was older than their recorded history, older than their civilization, older than any known species they had ever encountered. That realization changed everything. For the first time, their mission was no longer simple. This was not just a developing species. This was a protected world. Another ship vanished. Closer to the center of their formation this time, closer to their command. The unknown presence was not just observing, it was advancing. The alien leaders made a decision they had never made before in such a situation. They considered retreat, but hesitation cost them. Because the signal changed again, the moving symbols slowed down, became stable, readable, and then for the first time, a message formed. Not in human language, not in alien language, but in something deeper. Something both could understand. A meaning rather than words, a command rather than a statement. And that meaning was clear. You are not allowed here. Silence followed. Heavy and absolute, across the alien fleet. Systems began to shut down in sections, not destroyed, but disabled. Controlled by something they could not resist. On Earth, people watched the sky, seeing the once perfect formation begin to break apart slowly. The balance had shifted, but the truth was becoming far more terrifying. Because whatever was protecting humanity, it was not human. And it was far more powerful than anyone had imagined. The message did not fade away quickly. It stayed, hanging across every system, every screen, every signal, like a presence that refused to be ignored. You are not allowed here. The meaning echoed again and again. Not as sound, but as understanding, something deeper than language. Something that reached directly into thought. Across the alien fleet, hesitation spread. Not confusion anymore, but realization. They were not in control, for the first time in their long history. They were the ones being judged inside the central command vessel. The highest-ranking entities gathered. Their form still, their focus absolute. They had faced countless civilizations, ended countless threats, but this was different. Their systems continued to degrade. Not violently, not chaotically, but with precision. Weapons powered down, navigation slowed, communication between ships became unstable. It was not destruction, it was control being taken away. One of their senior analysts processed the incoming data again and again, searching for any weakness, any pattern, any way to respond. But every calculation led to the same conclusion. they were outmatched, not by humans, but by something far older, far more advanced, and far more patient. On Earth, the sky looked different now. The alien formation was no longer perfect. Ships drifted slightly out of position. Gaps widened, movement slowed. People watched in silence, many still afraid. But something new had taken its place, a fragile sense of hope. Not because they understood what was happening, but because they could see the change. The invaders were no longer unstoppable, deep beneath the surface. The ancient system continued to reveal itself. Massive structures shifted slowly, systems connected. Energy flowed through pathways that had been inactive for ages. It was not waking in full power yet. It was choosing how much to reveal, how much to use, how much was necessary. Above, the alien fleet made one final attempt to regain control. Emergency protocols activated. Isolated systems tried to rebuild their network. Ships attempted to reconnect through protected channels. For a brief moment, it worked. Signals stabilized. Formation tightened slightly. Control returned in small sections, but it did not last. Because the presence responded immediately. Not with force, but with certainty, the signal changed again. Becoming sharper, clearer, stronger. Overwhelming every system it touched. And then something new happened. For the first time, the presence showed itself. Not fully, not completely, but enough, across every alien screen. Every human device, every remaining signal in orbit. A single image formed. Not a ship, not a weapon, but a structure. Massive beyond understanding, ancient beyond measurement. Floating in deep space far beyond Earth. Hidden in darkness, silent and unmoving. Yet alive with energy, it was watching. It had always been watching, and now it had decided to be seen. On Earth, people stared at the image, unable to understand what they were looking at, but feeling its scale, its age, its power. This was not something built recently. This was not something created for war. This was something placed long ago for a reason. Inside the alien command vessel, the reaction was immediate. Recognition spread through their systems like a shockwave, not of the structure itself, but of what it represented, a classification, a forbidden category in their records, something they were never meant to encounter, a protected origin world. Their mission parameters began to collapse, priorities shifting, calculations rewriting themselves in real time. This was no longer a target. This was a boundary, and they had crossed it. The signal delivered one final sequence, clearer than anything before, not just a warning, but a truth. This world is under protection. The meaning was absolute, no negotiation, no misunderstanding, no second interpretation. Across the fleet, systems began shutting down in larger sections. Ships losing power, drifting slowly, unable to maintain their previous control. The alien leaders made their decision. Not out of fear alone, but out of understanding. They could not win, and more importantly, they were not allowed to try. On Earth, the image slowly faded, screens returned to normal. But nothing felt the same anymore. People looked at the sky, watching the once unstoppable fleet weaken, watching the impossible become real. But one question remained in every mind. If something so powerful was protecting humanity, then why had it stayed hidden for so long? And what would happen next? Because deep in space, beyond even the alien fleet, the ancient structure remained. Silent again, watching, waiting, as if this was only the beginning. The alien fleet did not attack again. It did not move with purpose. It did not hold its formation. Instead, it began to fall apart slowly, like a force that had lost its reason to exist. Across Earth, people watched in silence. No cheers, no celebration, only disbelief. Because what they were seeing was impossible. The most powerful force humanity had ever faced was retreating. Ship by ship, sections of the fleet powered down. Engines dimmed. Massive structures that once blocked the stars began to turn away from Earth. Not in panic, but in controlled withdrawal. They were leaving inside their command vessel. The alien leaders issued the final directive. A command that had not been used in countless cycles. Full retreat, all operations terminated, all engagement protocols canceled. Their mission was over, but not in victory, in warning. As their ships moved away from Earth, they transmitted a signal. Not to humans, but to the wider galaxy, a message encoded with urgency. Something that would reach civilizations far beyond this system. On Earth, the signal could not be understood, but its intensity could be felt, like a ripple passing through space itself. A warning was being sent. Far above, the fleet crossed the edge of Earth's orbit. One final look at the planet they had come to erase. One final confirmation of what they had discovered. This world was not alone. This world was protected. And whatever protected it was far beyond them, deep in space. The ancient structure remained silent once more. No movement, no signal, no visible activity. As if it had returned to sleep after completing its purpose, but its presence could still be felt. Not seen, not heard, but known on Earth. Systems began to stabilize fully. Power grids returned, communication networks restored. Satellites came back online one by one. As if nothing had happened, but everything had changed. People gathered in streets again. Not in fear this time, but in confusion, in awe. In questions that had no answers. Governments tried to explain, scientists tried to analyze. But no one could fully understand what had just saved them. There was no official statement, no clear truth, only theories. Some believed it was an ancient alien guardian. Some believed it was a forgotten human creation. Some believed it was something even beyond that. But no one knew for sure. Days passed, then weeks. And the sky remained empty. No sign of the fleet, no return, no second attack. But far beyond Earth, the alien fleet did not stop. They traveled across systems, across vast distances, carrying the same message, repeating it again and again to any civilization that would listen. A warning about Earth, a warning about humanity, a warning about the presence that protected them. In distant regions of the galaxy, advanced civilizations received the signal, decoded its meaning, and reacted with shock. Because the classification attached to Earth was not just rare, it was feared, a protected origin world. A place that could not be touched, a place that should not be approached. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal. People went back to work, back to their routines. But something had changed deep inside humanity. They were no longer alone in the universe, and more importantly, they were not unprotected. Somewhere, something was watching over them. Not controlling them, not guiding them, but protecting them when it truly mattered. High above the planet, beyond sight, beyond detection. The ancient presence remained hidden once more, silent as it had always been. But now one thing was certain, it had revealed itself once. And that meant it could do so again. If needed, and as humanity continued to grow. To explore, to reach beyond their world. One truth remained unknown, unanswered, and quietly waiting. They came to destroy humanity, but instead, they discovered something far more terrifying. The reason no one in the galaxy would ever dare to try again.